Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming, and another RPG horror story. Now, you've probably already seen the title to this one, and are thinking, what? You see, the last one, The Disruptor, is a fairly archetypal kind of RPG horror story. Someone joins your RPG group and keeps doing something to get a shock out of people, traumatize people, do something offensive, off-color. And I don't say any of this from on a pedestal. I have been that person plenty of times. I have said things for lowbrow humor, vulgarity, especially among people I know really well. I will do things sometimes that I guess you will sometimes reduce to chaotic neutral behavior to get the plot moving forward, sometimes to the detriment of the game. I've done it, that player did it, although that player did it in the previous video to the nth degree, to the point of them ultimately being removed, leaving the group. This one is slightly different, or I should say, this one is slightly different. This one is the Macho Man Randy Savage. And how can an RPG horror story be related to Macho Man Randy Savage? Well, sometimes your disruptive player, your RPG horror story, isn't someone who is trying to shock, it's someone who's trying to entertain. Someone who gets caught in a trap, they can't walk out, and they are basically caught in a persistent loop of jocular behavior that completely destroys the tone of a game. And that's where the Macho Man comes in, because Randy Savage came along, he elbow dropped many campaigns that we participated in, myself and one of my regular gaming groups, and destroyed any kind of somber, serious tone that was being built. You might be thinking, what again? But let's provide some context. Quite a few people know that I do a Macho Man Randy Savage impersonation. I don't actually do a Macho Man Randy Savage impersonation. I do an impression of the person in the gaming group for whom this video is made. And I checked with him, by the way, because I still game with him, whether he was happy about me making this video. And he said, oh yeah, it's a real horror story, go ahead. Because he acknowledges now that he had a problem. And it was a case where he discovered a good few years ago that he could do a half-decent Macho Man Randy Savage impression. And so occasionally, during our gaming, you would suddenly get this, yeah, dig it. I'm gonna get you, Zaztam. Yeah, with the elbow drop off the top rope. Yeah, dig it. Because of the way you took over Thay and my Miss Elizabeth. And so forth. He actually first started doing it in a Scarred Lands game that we were playing. And Scarred Lands is another Onyx Path Publishing setting, and it's now available in Savage Worlds. We were doing Scarred Lands using Dungeons and Dragons, and I remember the first appearance of Macho Man Randy Savage in the game very, very well indeed. And we were crawling through a dungeon absolutely coated with fatlings, and it often sounds like if you're facing like a horde of monsters of the same kind, things get boring. But the GM, and it wasn't me, the GM was so brilliant at describing the increasing dread of being surrounded by these things, that every room we entered, there were more and more of these things pouring in through the ceiling, seeping in through cavities in the walls. And this dungeon was the living or unliving remains of one of the titans in Scarred Lands. One of the best things about the Scarred Lands setting, the fact that you can basically dungeoneer in the corpses or comatose bodies, torpid bodies of titans and gods, and that their inhabitants tend to share many of the features, their titan spawn of the titans who are now resting, essentially like their white blood cells or similar. So what we were trying to do was reach not the heart but the stomach of this titan and extract it, disconnect it from the rest of the body, because this titan of greed, if we removed the stomach entirely, there was a logic to it. Anyway, there were fatlings all around us. And we had our barbarian. And the barbarian happened to be one of the Slytherin, one of the playable races in Scarred Lands. And just as we were about to enter combat, the player started going, thinking, yeah. How am I gonna deal with 1, 2, 3, 4 fatlings on the horizon? Yeah, I'm gonna have to fit them in the figure 4 leg like a Madison Square Garden, yeah. And then the elbow drop off the top rope, and so forth. And everyone laughed. Everyone thought this was funny. It was a bit of a non sequitur. Clearly, the player had wrestling on the mind. Macho Man Randy Savage was there, prominent in his head. And he proceeded to, I mean, it would have befit a monk more, but he proceeded to have his barbarian not only engage every single combatant with swings of his great axe. I can't honestly remember. I think it was a large maul. He was swinging at everything, basically smashing fatlings and spraying everything with this corrosive goop. But every single time he did, he was essentially commentating it like it was a wrestling move, as if Macho Man Randy Savage was there commentating his own match while delivering every single blow. That looks like 12 hit points to me, brother. And cup of coffee, yeah. And it amuses me now. And the problem is we all laughed. We all thought this was funny. And so the player felt ennobled and encouraged. And so the next, Macho Man Randy Savage kept popping up throughout the rest of the Scarred Lands campaign. The Barbarian basically became Barbarian Slytherin Randy Savage, and it was a great deal of fun. But when we then moved on to Vampire the Masquerade, he was playing a Gangrel. He has a certain type, let's be... And I know Gangrel's a wrestler as well. But he was playing a Gangrel, and for the first few sessions, perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. I was running this game. We were actually doing the V5 Sacrifice Chronicle, over which I was the developer. And this may have been the first time I was running it, actually. I think it was. And his Gangrel was he was fervently anti-Sabbat. It was in his character past that he'd been involved in a Sabbat raid on a Camarilla or Anarch domain before, and he still bore the scars that his previous coterie had basically been annihilated by the Sabbat. And so when it came time to deal with the La Sombra in the Sacrifice Chronicle, all of a sudden, who pipes up by... You think, Mr. Keeper, yeah, think I'm gonna deal with the La Sombra, yeah, with your hot-dogging and grandstanding, yeah, I remember, Mr. La Sombra, yeah, your Sabbat affiliation, what you did to Miss Elizabeth, who was, of course, a previous member of his coterie. And Hulk Hogan, yeah, oh, I grew tired of, yeah, but he was still my partner, yeah, my brother, Jack. Mm-hmm. And so this went on, and it was still amusing, because we thought this was a one-off, but it wasn't. Suddenly, he had developed the idea that every single conversation his Gangrel had to be in the voice of Macho Man Randy Savage. There was still some laughter, but I said to him during this game, okay, this is a more somber tone. Scarred Lands was a bit balls to the wall, insanity, we just want lots of violence, lots of bloodshed, and adventurous heroism, so no problem there. But in this Vampire the Masquerade game, we're talking about political intrigue, personal horror, and the personal horror somewhat saps away when you've got one character pinching the bridge of his nose saying, I don't know that I can stomach another mouthful of mortal blood. And you've got another player who is bemoaning the fact that he has lost his emotional connections to the mortals in his life. And then you've got the third player saying, "Snap into the sub." It it kind of loses its meaning, any kind of weight. It's amusing, I grant you, but it is a complete tone killer, which would have been a better name for this episode than the Macho Man Randy Savage, but I've committed to it now and described it as such. I'm not going back. So, the player put it on a hold, but whenever a combat occurred in that scenario, and there were a couple with Brett Stryker and various other kindred around the city who were trying to interfere with our plots, all of a sudden the Gangrel would break out. "Snip out the claws, yeah! Cut into him! Get you in the figure four leg lock, brother, yeah! For the championship!" And so on and so forth. This would go on, and we'd say, "All right, combat's over." I spoke to the player again after the Chronicle and said, "You do a brilliant Randy Savage impression. It's not as good as mine. You do a brilliant Randy Savage impression, but we need to stop now." But there's a thing humor can do, where you repeat a joke enough times and it just stops being funny, but you keep at it and it starts becoming amusing again because of the absurdity of it all. And I think that is what, well, in fact, I know that's what's going through the player's mind, because we then go a good year without Macho Man Randy Savage showing up. Randy Savage constantly during Scarred Lands. Randy Savage only during combat in Vampire the Masquerade. I'm still playing with this player. He's still a good friend. I do so today. But by the third campaign, and we've gone back to an Onyx Path game. We're playing Trinity Continuum Assassins now, which is a fantastic game where you all play sort of hot-shot assassins from different agencies with different causes, different codes of morals. It's like John Wick, the role-playing game. It's a fantastic game. I strongly recommend people pick up Trinity Continuum Assassins. I'm kind of waiting for our player, our Macho Man, to come up with an assassin who is a retired professional wrestler. And he doesn't. He comes up with someone who is a family man. He is calm, he's sober, he keeps his criminal activity away from his family. He takes out only the most evil people who target families, irrespective, of their criminal or legal affiliation, whatever. He is a really decent character. He's well thought out. He has all these connections. He writes a backstory that's not obnoxiously long. The player's doing wonderful work. And this Trinity Continuum Assassins game, it explores some dark material. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize about the Trinity Continuum. While it has an air of the adventure and the heroism, of course, and pulp action, there's a certain insidiousness that exists in the background, especially in games like Assassins. And the players really get into it. And this is a game I'm running. I'm really enjoying it. And I remember saying to the player, this was at a crucial point. We'd been running it for about 4 months or so, once a week. And so we'd got something like 11 or 12 sessions done. And I said to him, how would you feel now about going through the sort of stereotypical moment where, he's pissed off a lot of big-time bad guys by this point. How would you feel about going back to your home after this mission concludes and finding that your family's been wiped out? And he was really on board for this. He thought it would make a good character arc. Again, it's the kind of thing that's been explored before, but he hadn't played it before outside of his Gangrel getting the coterie wiped out. But never mind that. He hadn't played it before in this game, and he was down for it. He was really down for it. And so we played through the scene the next time we got together. And he told me he had a great idea in mind for how he was going to respond, a way for his character to develop. And you can see where this is going because with the subject of this video. I didn't. In my naivety, I never even considered the elbow drop off the top rope would be on its way toward this somber, character-developed moment. 12 sessions with no sign of Macho Man Randy Savage. We had achieved sobriety. And then he's there in his living room, holding the remains of one child in one arm, one child in the other. And out comes... I'm feeling like myself. The madness for the first time. Yeah. Yeah. When I find Les Phantoms, the agency that was responsible, I'm gonna snap into them from there. And everyone didn't laugh. And it would have been a perfect time to laugh, because there'd been like a 3-month gap since the last time we'd endured this. And it wasn't a terrible impression. But the thing is, we had really built up to this. We'd built this character's family and his relationship with his family, and fair enough to the player, it was his choice. It was his choice to have this relationship and then do this turn. But then he ruined it for everyone, including, I think, himself. Because while he was there going, yeah, elbow drop, yeah, brother Jack, I'm gonna clean to the top, yeah, cup of coffee in the big time, and the rest, Ricky Steamboat, Honky Tonk Man, yeah, Hulk Hogan, hot dogging and grandstanding, yeah. He was busy doing this on his Macho Man spin, and the rest of us were kind of, fuck, Jesus, can we not escape Randy Savage? And he came to me after the session. In fact, it wasn't even after the session. We had a break. And he came to me and said, I really shouldn't have done that, should I? And I said, I think you might have blown your serious moment of character development now. And I said, are you going to carry on playing your character now as Randy Savage now that his true persona has broken through? And he said, can we take the scene again? And I said, let's just check with the players, because we'd role-played a little more after that. And they said, yes, absolutely, please, yes. And you could see on his face that he was tempted to just do it again. He was tempted to just drive that damn thing 6 feet under the Undertaker, yeah, Paul Bearer, and so on. You could see he wanted to do it. He wanted to talk about Miss Elizabeth and the Twin Towers and the various other Macho Man promos. But he refrained. And he played a serious, sober character who mourned the death of his family, felt his revenge girded, and we were back into Trinity Continuum Assassins. And since that time, he only breaks out Randy Savage outside of the game. Because what we learned here, and what I suggest all of you learn, viewers, you may have found this very entertaining. The thing is, we found it entertaining as well. And it's such a simple thing. It's such a minor issue in the great scheme of things. Is you can completely destroy the tone of a serious game. I mean, we could have been playing Cult Divinity Lost and found a bunch of victims of some horrible torture, and we would have got Macho Man Randy Savage picking through the remains. We could have been playing Alice is Missing. Actually, that's a silent game, so we would have had it texted as, ooh, yeah, Diggit, where's Alice, brother? We could have been playing Bluebeard's Bride, and we would have had Macho Man Randy Savage as one of the brides. Whatever way we cut it, we would have ended up with Macho Man Randy Savage. And sometimes you have to address these things. Sometimes you just have to say to the player, okay, joke's ended. It's not funny anymore. Or at least keep it outside of the gaming group. And in fairness to this player, it took him a while. It took him fucking the story up for himself to realize that, okay, this is actually detrimental to the tone of this serious game we're playing. So keep in mind your repeated returns to the well of humour and how they can utterly destroy the tone of a game. And I hope you've enjoyed that, because the next RPG horror story is going to be far less fun. Thank you very much for watching. I will be seeing you next time.